What is going on? Holy crap. I know what you're probably thinking. And no, I have not relocated. It's so cold that 3 days later, we still have this. Look at the little kitty prints. Hopefully that's a bobcat and not a feral cat. But yeah, it looks like 2025 is going to be a pretty slow start this year. But that's okay, because we're going to get back to the fundamentals of field herping this year and just enjoy spending time outside. And while yes, it is cool to be able to find big snakes, rare snakes, at the end of the day, the fundamentals of field herping are getting outside and enjoying all the amazing things in nature. And oftentimes in places that are very special, either for personal reasons or because they're just incredibly diverse and well protected. And the place we're going today is my yard. Not necessarily just my yard. I'm starting out right here at home, and I'm gonna follow the creek here close to where I live as far as I can follow it. Now, a lot of you might be wondering if I'll even be able to find anything with all this snow on the ground, and that's a good question. I don't know. So we're gonna find out. How much does 3 inches of snowfall impact my ability to find snakes? Probably pretty heavily, but I don't think it's gonna impact my ability to find salamanders. At least not to the point where we don't find anything. I'm sure we'll see something today. It just might not be, you know, a king snake. In fact, I would be shocked if we saw any snakes today for obvious reasons. This is going to be the nicest day in 3 days. So the high is supposed to be like 53. Not bad. So without rambling any further, I'm gonna hit the woods. We'll see what we get into. All right. Now this area that gets good sun, a lot of the snow is melted away over here, and there's some tin, so I don't expect to find any reptiles today, but you never know. Oh, I actually just saw, I don't know what this was. It looked like a lizard though. It could have even been a snake. I mean, this tin is warm to the touch. I don't know what that was. Maybe we'll have to check a little more tin today. Oh, it is a lizard. All right, I got it. That was involved. Well, there you have it. First herp of 2025. A little bit surprised. Oh, definitely a little surprised it's a reptile, but not shocked that it is a ground skink. If we're going to find a reptile today, that's exactly what I would expect it to be. These guys are so small that their bodies are really quick to warm up, and they're quick to get going, quick to be fast. As you can see, he darted away so quickly when I flipped that first sheet of tin, I couldn't even tell what I was looking at. All right, little dude, thanks for being brave today. First herp of the year. In another week or two, this is going to be an unrecognizable scene. And I'm gonna take another video standing from this exact place so you can see what I mean. We'll wait till that happens. I won't spoil it. But yeah, we shall continue. We're really down into the wetlands now. Proper salamander habitat. I don't know how easy it's going to be to find the places that we wish to actually flip logs, because they might be under snow right now, and if that's the case, we might not have the best day. So this is what a spotted salamander breeding pool looks like right now, with the granddaddy of all privet trees above it. This tree has spawned a lot of misery in this wetland. You can see basically everything that's green coming up out there right now, including this, is all the result of this giant tree, which is invasive, of course. That's about as perfect of a circle as you're gonna find in Mother Nature. Look at that. Now that is weird and concerning, given the whole bird flu situation. We're gonna keep our distance, but that is a dead, I believe it's a great horned owl. All right, now this is the kind of place that I would think we might be able to find some salamanders on a day such as today. It's a much smaller creek. One might even call it a seepage with running water that probably never froze. So, all right, well, we're just kind of wandering around. I'm following this uphill until it gets a little bit seepier. But while we're walking, I did want to talk about goals and plans for 2025. In case you guys didn't notice, I missed every single one of my 2024 goals. I'm not going to take that too harshly on myself, because at the end of the year I had a car accident, which severely limited my ability to kind of finish up a couple of those. But a lot of those goals have remained the same. Northern pine snake here preferably, but I'll take one anywhere. That is the #1 goal. Has been since probably 2019. But beyond that, I want to take at least a few trips to places I've never been, one of which is going to be happening next month. And I want to find a couple, if not all, of those few Georgia native snakes I still need to see in the wild, which are within the state of Georgia. The northern pine snake, Florida crown snake, green water snake, black swamp snake, striped crayfish snake. And only one of those I think is truly a difficult snake to find, and that's the northern pine snake. That's part of why I haven't found the others, because I just have such a hard time bringing myself to go to South Georgia when the snake that I want to find the most and is the hardest to find is right here, quite literally in my own backyard. And here we have what actually looks like a spotted dusky salamander, Desmognathus conanti. It could be a prolapsus. I'll have to look at it a little bit more closely in photos, but first salamander of the year, Desmog. I'm going to take a quick photo of this guy with my new flash setup and see how he looks. Here's another tiny little Desmog under his snowy log. Shadows are getting long already, but the solstice is past and it's functionally spring. We just need our spring-like weather to show up, which it will any day now, and it is going to be on. You can see the difference in a north-facing slope and a south-facing slope after 2 days of snow. Most of the snow over there is gone, and there's still several inches over here. You know what I can't help but think walking around out here today? Imagine if snakes came out in the snow. How easy they'd be to find. You could just follow them. I mean, I guess there's sand, but it's not quite the same. Because when it snows everywhere, and sand is only ever in sandy places. So I feel like if they were out in this, it would be almost too easy to find them. Because I can see where every mammal, every bird has landed. It's really cool. I don't get to see this very much. Everyone from the north is laughing at me for thinking snow is so cool, but it really is super fun for me because, like, we get this maybe once every couple of years, and it's been a long time. I'm not sure we've ever even made a real snow herping video on the channel before this, even though I've done it a lot in the past. It's just been, ever since 2019, we've been blessed with warm winters, which has been awesome because it's allowed me to make more snaky videos this time of year. But at the same time, this is a nice change of pace, and hopefully y'all don't mind, especially those of you who live in places where it doesn't snow, and this is just kind of a new experience for you, coming along with me as I look for cold-blooded animals when there's 2 inches of snow on the ground. I think this area did get like between 3 and 4 inches, maybe even more, because I mean there's still a solid 1 or 2 inches here in the shadier areas. And while I'm covering ground here, it's a good opportunity to talk about the fact that I do live streams now. I know a lot of you tuned into the first couple, but if you didn't see it, I am doing live streams now, herping live streams, and they're terrible, but 99% of my day is spent finding nothing, so I'm sure you could imagine how a herping live stream would suck, but at the same time it was fun, and I enjoyed it enough that I want to do it more in 2025. If you didn't see it, we were mostly looking for salamanders and common stuff, but we did actually find a couple snakes too. But that is something I'm going to try to do way more in 2025, possibly even weekly. Now we're talking. You can tell this is that nice warm spring water that's coming out of the planet somewhere over there. This one looks more like prolapsus to me. More spindly tail, more shovel nose, less blunt head. And on top of that, it was in this, so pretty textbook seepage for these guys. And sure enough, it's hardly red, but it is a red salamander. I'll try to get a wide angle photo with this guy in the snow before it all melts away. It's getting toasty out here. Well, I definitely won't be winning any beauty awards, but first red salamander of the year, first of the day. We might have another 1 or 2 in us today, who knows? I've seen several in a day at this spot before, so, but very nice. The day's moving along fairly well considering. All right, check this out. It's our first spotted of the year. First spotted of the day. Now that is cool. Not only is it a really cool looking large spotted salamander, but it's in the snow. By the way, you can tell how much snow has melted today. It is no longer cold. So we don't have to worry about this guy freezing or anything. Seriously, that has to be one of the prettiest spotteds I've ever seen. Definitely a male. All right, dude, well, you are gorgeous. Very photogenic. I took a couple with the snow in the background, and now we'll put him back under his log. But first spotted salamander of the year, surely very, very many more to come. And maybe the highlight of the day so far. This guy's exceptional. And interestingly enough, this is kind of where I was shooting for and probably where I'll turn around. Much further past this, the habitat kind of declines, but very, very cool wetland here with so far just one spotted salamander. I'll poke around a little bit longer, but might be wrapping up here soon. And when I was in high school, I saw water snakes basking along this creek in the winter pretty regularly. And as cold as in the 40s, but things have changed, unfortunately. Snakes are a lot harder to find now, even in pretty pristine wilderness such as this. I mean, for Metro Atlanta, if I stop for a second, what do you hear? Nothing but creek. And that's because there is nothing for at least a couple miles in any direction. I started off the day cold and dry, and I'm ending the day warm and wet. Still feel like I'm walking around in Skyrim though, looking for salamanders. And that is a pretty cool feeling. Honestly, I wish it snowed here every year, at least once or twice. I'm definitely thankful that we're not under several inches of snow all winter. Look at this. Wonder if it's intact. Dig it out a little more. Feels intact. It is intact. That's coming home. It's not super old, but it's pretty dang old. You can tell by the D in Dr. Pepper that that is not a modern bottle. Hopefully I'm not damaging the label. I don't know what kind of material that is. It's not paper, it'd be gone. I am a fan of Dr. Pepper, and I'm also a fan of old things. This is old Dr. Pepper. All right, well, at least we're tacking another species on here. We have a nice southern two-line salamander, a nice male, getting ready for the breeding season. You can see he's got those big dangling pheromone receptors on the chin. And of course, those are called cirri, where the species gets its scientific name, Uricea cerigera. This guy's actually got a kind of interesting stripe down his back too. And then there's a spotted, number 2. It's definitely less snowy over here, but this little log pile is very snowy. Another male. These guys get to the breeding ponds before the females and deposit their spermatophores. And then the females come along a couple weeks later and find them. So it's possibly this guy's already made a reproductive deposition into this wetland. And maybe he's just hanging out now. But either way, another good looking spotted. And this is actually the first time I've found them at this particular wetland. Apparently this is suddenly much better salamander habitat because I found 2 more 2-lines, one of which I didn't film. But this one's just another beautiful male. This looks like a nice salamandery snowy log. It's right here in the water, so probably hasn't frozen much. It's bigger than it looks, so hold up. Alright, nobody under there. It's a crayfish. It's kind of cool. I'm sure it's some rare burrowing species. Well, we started the day on a reptile, and we might be ending the day on a reptile. A nice big adult ground skink. Just running around beside this rock. There you go, bud. Man, we are doing okay today. There's a marbled. Back in the yard now. Here's another smaller, less attractive marbled, literally in the yard. I don't know why there's so many of these in my yard. I think they spend the non-breeding months up here and then go down to the wetland. But yeah, very likely the last herp of the day. It's been solid considering. No snake, but a couple of reptiles, lots of salamanders, and some really nice views. All right, everybody, it's the next day. Thankfully, my mom was kind enough to let me borrow her car today so we can actually get out, because it's going to be 53 degrees. I know, that is kind of remarkable. There's still a bunch of snow on the ground. It's still 38 degrees at 10 a.m. And truthfully, I really don't think we're going to be finding any snakes today. There's a chance, but I am going to mostly be targeting spring salamanders. So one of my favorite salamanders, I think they're one of our biggest and most impressive salamander species and can be pretty tough to track down. And on top of all that, they live in very beautiful places like these nice steep hardwood ravines in Metro Atlanta. So today's spot is one that I think I started coming to either last year or the year before. And it's a pretty urban area. It's surrounded on all sides by neighborhoods, but it is a decent sized chunk of woods. And I think it could even be potentially really good for snakes. You can see mostly hardwood with some pines scattered in on the ridge tops, and then a couple of creeks. And more importantly, a couple of seepages that feed into those creeks. So yeah, we're gonna follow this ravine until we hit water and start looking for salamanders. You can see not nearly as much snow on the ground here as where we were yesterday. It's pretty patchy at this point. Interestingly enough, that right there is a longleaf pine. One of the only pines in this forest that I see. I did see some others earlier, but I've lost them now. And that is a pretty good indicator that, historically at least, this would have been good snake habitat. Currently, I feel like it could still have hognose snakes and timber rattlesnakes, but I think that's probably the upper limit. Not a bad upper limit, but I don't know how well you can see them, but there's a number of giant houses on the ridgetop right through the woods. So we are very much in a degraded area, but you can see there's some pretty big deadfall. Doesn't look like any of this has been clear cut or anything, at least in recent history. And this is the kind of thing that when you're seeing an abundance of it, you're probably in decent timber rattlesnake habitat, or at least historical timber rattlesnake habitat within the Atlanta metro. This is a kind of interesting time to talk about this because I mentioned the longleaf, but part of the problem with developing ridgetops in Metro Atlanta is the ridgetops are the best snake habitat. Ridgetops are the most appealing place to build houses in most places because, one, they tend to have views, which are always appealing for people. But here, they're flat, and they're the easiest place to build houses. But they're also the places where the remnant longleaf and savanna-like habitat. I actually see another longleaf over there. Once again, up the ridge quite a bit, but it's very cool. I hadn't noticed longleaf out here prior to this trip, so looks like we're finally getting down to a seepage. You can see there's some water running down there, so hopefully we'll get into some salamanders here momentarily. So these big longleafs like this are really relics at this point of a time when this habitat was a lot more wild and certainly had a lot more fire on the ground. Since these houses are here, this place will probably never have fire on the ground again, and it's probably been a long time since there was fire on the ground. And because of that, the days are probably numbered for these Metro Atlanta longleaf, unfortunately, because as you can see, there are no young longleaf. I don't think any of those even up there around that tree are young longleaf. It looks like loblolly, maybe shortleaf. But in the absence of fire, longleaf pines will eventually blink out from the ecosystem, unfortunately. But yeah, this is our salamander habitat for the day. This is not great spring habitat, but it is definitely spring habitat. Some of the stuff we'll be getting into will be a little more rocky. I think part of what makes spring such a tough salamander to find consistently is that their habitat is just largely underground. You can see this particular spring comes out from under the earth right here. And I think because of that, I think that's a pretty good indicator that a lot of the habitat we can't even get to because it's underneath the planet. On a warmer day, that would have been a decent spring log. All right, well, tragically but unsurprisingly, our first spring salamander of the day is a larvae. This actually kind of brings us back to what I was talking about earlier. So in the genus Gyrinophyllus, or Gyrinophyllus, honestly, I'm not sure how to pronounce the genus name for spring salamanders. I've always said Gyrinophyllus, but I think it's probably Gyrinophyllus or something like that. But this is not a Latin pronunciation channel. But the genus Gyronophilus has a number of species in it. There's the spring salamander complex and then the cave salamander complex, which is basically an entirely subterranean spring salamander. There's, I think, 2 species. Here's one I photographed in Alabama. This is the Tennessee cave salamander, and something that hopefully we'll go see on the channel one day. They look like a spring salamander larvae that hasn't metamorphed into an adult, which is very, very cool, and kind of indicates that Gyronophilus as a genus is very subterranean. All right, first non-larval salamander of the day. This is an adult Talladega dusky salamander. Actually, maybe not an adult, but definitely not fully grown. These are massive desmogs. All right, we got a nice looking stretch here, so I'm gonna strap the GoPro up. I've only got a little bit of battery on it today, but it would be cool to get a spring salamander flip clip. Come on. What a perfect rock. There's a crayfish. Didn't see him at first. Ooh, what was that? Hold up. That's not what I saw. Oh, here it is. What are you? Come here. What the heck? Hold still. Yeah, that's Chiaha. Although it isn't at all surprising, it is cool to see evidence of combat in Desmognathus Chiaha. You can see around mid-body there, he's got some scarring, and that's probably from another desmog, but it could be from a bigger salamander like a spring trying to eat him. Well, that's not a spring salamander, but it is our first snake of the year. Guess I'll go try to get a photo of this guy next to the last patch of snow remaining in the state. I think it might be that one over there. But yeah, kind of surprising. I think this is actually the first snake I've ever found here. And obviously he's a little bit chilly, but I'll flip this rock so you can see what's going on here. Put that guy down. So check this out. Underneath here is a series of ant tunnels and a lot of fossorial snakes. You can see that hole right there probably goes decently far underground, at least far enough that when it freezes, this guy doesn't have to worry about freezing solid. So what we're going to do is make sure all these leaves are out from under here, because we want this rock to go back as exactly as we found it, so that he can spend the rest of the winter under here without any issues. But we do have a couple of nice days coming up. He's got plenty of time to get back underground. This is actually a really cool looking earth snake. It's huge. I mean, that's about the upper limit of as big as these guys get. And he's a lot darker than I'm used to. Look at that. Beautiful. In a subtle way. These guys are actually a very weird fossorial. I know when we did a tier list a few years back, I put them as the single worst snake in Georgia. And I stand by that, but they are definitely cool. I love them to death. And I also love that they're one of these things that we can just randomly find in the middle of winter when there's snow on the ground. All right, I added this guy to my list of species I've photographed in the snow, or at least what's left of it, because it just feels pleasant out now, as tends to happen on days like this. It goes from cold to very nice very quickly. Other than this guy's gnarly looking tail, he is pretty healthy looking, so I think he has pretty good odds of surviving the winter, especially since he's got a nice deeper hole under this rock that he can retreat down when the cold weather returns in a couple of days. There he goes. Knows exactly where he's at. That tail tip's probably going to fall off, but it's not the end of the world. All right, now we're just going to make sure this rock is sealed in nicely for the next cold snap. Yeah, it's going to be that time of day now where I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw a rat snake or something poking its head out of one of these rock faces. All right, we're entering the danger zone for springs at this point, because I've exhausted my main creek where I've seen them before. And so now we have to go look for them in places that may or may not even exist. So we're going to just trek through the woods and hope to find some nice looking creeks. So part of the reason I'm looking for salamanders today instead of snakes is that the next 2 days are going to be much, much warmer than even today. And I think there's a good chance we could find snakes, and possibly decent numbers of snakes, tomorrow and the next day. So But yeah, mostly targeting salamanders today, and then tomorrow and the next day we will be switching gears into snake mode for the first time in 2025. All right, well, I followed the main creek until we hit another seepage. The main creek did look really good for snakes, but I did not have any luck. I do want to come back here in the spring this year for sure, because it just looks so promising. But we'll probably follow this seepage as far as we can and then maybe call it a day. There's a guy over here. What's up, dude? All right, there's our first frog of the year, a green frog. I think at this point we have most of the major herp groups represented. We haven't seen a turtle yet. And here's a little bullfrog. You can see no dorsolateral fold there. A little bit blockier head. Little dude though. Obviously he will get a lot bigger. All right, guys, I think I'm making my way back to the car at this point through the kind of DD mega doo-doo habitat. We might get a first of year slimy or redback or something in here, but I think we're probably done for the day. Like I said, I'm in my mom's car, so I gotta go pick her up from work. I do see a pile of junk over here. We'll see what's going on with this. It's been a pretty solid first couple of outings of 2025, all things considered. I mean, finding stuff in the snow is always fun. And we actually found some decent stuff too. A snake. There's a nice junk pile right here, but I fear that it's probably a little too closed canopy to really have anything. There's a little piece of plastic coming up here. Could have had a brown snake. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I know this episode's probably a little light on the action and heavy on the yapping, but sometimes that's how herping goes. So, I mean, this is just a realistic depiction of what I'm up to right now, waiting for it to get warmer and enjoying the simple things. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for another year of living the dream. I am so excited for this year. I am just chomping at the bit to get back behind the wheel. And not having a car is one of those dehumanizing things a person can experience, especially when the only reason you don't have a car is because of somebody else's mistake. Really, really frustrating, but that's life. You know, we'll be back on the road eventually. And as long as that's before, I don't know, February, when things start really ramping up, it's not the end of the world. We'll continue to make do. And I know there's a lot of good stuff coming your way in 2025. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. And even at the end of the day, there's still snow on the ground. There's not going to be tomorrow because it's going to be 55 degrees. Today it barely broke 50. So that extra 5 degrees tomorrow I think is going to be a big boon. I'll see you guys then.